Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 9 of the Files Obscura podcast, where today we're tackling a big topic, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. And what a day to start this recording because it was completely unintentional. We more or less all forgot that today was the SpaceX launch.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
it's really funny because they were supposed to launch was like 2 days
it
ago.
was something like that. And then there was weather issues, and they had to reschedule it, which was today. And obviously you're in the future, you'll know it landed successfully, it docked successfully. Little side note, my favorite part of watching the live stream was, I can't remember which one of the two astronauts it was. But one of them was brought out a toy dinosaur.
That's funny.
Yeah, and he was floating around for a minute on the live stream.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. So,
See,
but yeah,
I didn't know anything about this. You completely surprised me when you told me about this.
yeah, it's the first time we've launched a rocket on American soil in 9 years since we've canceled the space shuttle program.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a really big deal, you know.
And I think it's pretty exciting. I mean, if it weren't for like SpaceX, I really don't know when we would have gone back into space. We would have launched again.
Well, in pretty much any theoretical debate, opening a space program for commercial use and from privatized companies was pretty much the inevitable next step to make space exploration happen. You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I'm not surprised. I'm just surprised that it happened this soon, if you would, because I thought there would be a lot more pushback, over the years. But with the success of what was it called, the Dragon rocket or whatever they were using, I honestly can't
Something
remember.
like that. I know. Wait, is this one Falcon Heavy or was that? That's
I can't remember.
Yeah, no. But yeah, no. It's pretty exciting. Pretty cool. History being made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this was the first time we've launched a rocket that successfully landed back to Earth that carried human beings for reuse.
Yeah.
So yes, it just an all-around monumental historic day.
Oh,
Which is a nice break from the unfortunate tragedy we witnessed about a week ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, for any of you in the future or just those who genuinely don't know, this is George Floyd?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it was George Floyd.
Yeah, George Floyd, recently an unfortunate man who died at the hands of a police officer using beyond excessive force and using all the wrong police tactics to handle a suspect. This is not the time for us to talk about the story, but real quick for those who don't know, it's a very famous picture already of the police officer. It was David something, basically kneeling with his entire body weight on George Floyd's neck. And for about 5 minutes, he struggled until he just finally, his body gave out.
Yeah.
He was literally choking to death. And so many police officers, it was like 3 police officers were standing by and so many civilians just watching it. Here's what makes me more mad is that, yes, we all witnessed this. Yes, we know this police officer did it. It's a horrible, horrible thing. But what also makes me mad is the fact that nobody decided to actually step in and do something. Yes, I understand the fear of being shot, being arrested, being tied in and harassed even more. But at the end of the day, you watched a man die, you recorded it, and didn't do anything. I understand the fear of doing something, but I don't personally believe that should ever stop you from doing what's right when the opportunity presents itself. I don't blame you, but at the same time, I think that's something to look at yourself critically for. But my personal views aside, that's just a little taste of our political climate going on right now. I mean, hell, last night Houston finally experienced its first protests and riots and looting. It's ridiculous. I was just downtown yesterday too for a little bit when all that was starting. Is whenever I came back home.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty. It's pretty wild what's going on. And honestly, like, I can't really do much from where I'm sitting.
it's horrible. It really is.
But
I didn't hear about the Houston one.
Yeah, no, it's obviously not to the scale of Minneapolis or anything like that. But yeah, no, that started yesterday, and police were already starting to try to localize a lot of the protesters and everything and try to corral them.
Yeah, and that whole
So,
situation's really, really complicated. There's a lot of stuff going on involving the police, and undercover police officers.
oh yeah, the
That,
dude in all black with the umbrella
yeah,
smashing the AutoZone windows. Oh
oh, it's
god,
it's everywhere. It's
dude,
everywhere.
yeah. Have you seen the video? He just does it so nonchalantly.
Yeah,
It's like, what the hell, dude?
absolutely.
I'm extremely out of the loop here. I have no clue what you two are talking about.
Okay, so after we record, I will send you some of the videos, but there is a very famous video going on right now about a protest that was happening in Minneapolis about 3 days ago, I believe, where there was a man spotted who was decked out all black, who had a black umbrella and one of those tear gas face masks, and he was walking around with a hammer and just nonchalantly walking up and smashing windows while the peaceful protest was going on the street that he did this on. So a lot of people were beginning to point fingers about, like, why are you doing this? We're not trying to, spark looting or anything like that. A lot of people were accusing him of being a cop who was trying to spark such a problem to justify, such a harsh response of like tear gas or rubber bullets.
Yeah, and
Yikes.
Yes.
yeah, and I actually believe it wasn't just that one case. There's been multiple.
Yeah,
cases.
there's been multiple cases, but that's the famous one.
That's the big one. Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of people say that they believe that it's a certain sergeant in the Minneapolis police force that was doing that.
The crazy thing is, like, the FBI, the U.S. police force. I mean, they've been known for pulling this kind of stuff.
Oh yeah,
all the time.
Oh yeah, so it is not beyond the realm of possibility. You have more than enough,
evidence
and declassified cases, which you can get through appeals between what was it, the Freedom of Information Act and all that.
Yeah.
So all kinds of stuff that gives us every reason not to trust people. And at the end of the day, like I said, it's a horrible, horrible thing. And it may be something we talk about in a future episode, but it is not the point of our episode today.
Yeah, just talking about the news.
Yeah, so we're gonna put a cork in that one. It's definitely worth coming back to as we see things unfold. But in lieu of being accused of pushing personal responses or agendas, we're gonna continue with today's episode. And like I said, it was completely not planned to have us record this on, the day the SpaceX launch.
Yeah.
But I could not feel any happier of how that, lined up.
Definitely a bright spot in 2020.
Oh, absolutely. With how horrible everything's been going from, the viruses to the Amazon burning down and Australia's forest burning down and murder hornets, all kinds of horrible, horrible stuff going on. This is a nice bright day, in 2020, I would say.
Yeah. It's definitely needed.
Oh, very much needed,
Mm-hmm.
because this is actually, this is our second time recording, because I actually had an issue recording the first one. The audio got screwed up, but I remember also, we were talking about how, like, as a young kid, me moving to Houston with my dad and all that, it just fostered what I call that astro kid mentality, the kid who's so absorbed in space and everything about space, planets, meteors, the possibility of aliens, of course, getting thrown in there. So it's something that's always personally been tied to me, as I've had a personal fascination with, like, the Mercury and Gemini projects. Apollo, famously, of course, I was interested in.
Yeah.
The history behind all of our shuttle launches and the unfortunate, disasters of Challenger and Columbia. These are things that have always, fascinated me and captured my attention, because these are the steps we are taking as a species to advance ourselves. And just the question of what is out there has been the one thing that captures our attention more than anything else. We don't know what's out there.
Oh, yeah.
We have no clue.
I definitely think it's something that just humanity in general has been really curious about. And how can you not be curious about something that you don't fully understand? Which, I mean, yeah, there's still a lot of space out there, a lot of uncharted territory outside of our own planet. We might have, even if we track every single piece of land on this planet, there's so much unexplored territory.
Oh, very much so.
And it's really crazy. Just like you, as a kid, I had a bunch of space books. I still have one of my old space books over here. And it always fascinates you. I mean, you look at all those pictures of planets and you're like, wow, that's like an unimaginable amount of miles away from this planet, and it exists. It's real space. It's crazy. It's big. It's huge. It's mysterious. And
Yeah.
I guess this is, I guess you could segue.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's just I was going to see how far you were going to go.
Yeah.
But, with all that being said, this is a very broad and fascinating topic with a lot of, different things that are worth looking into and discussing. So to avoid a work overload, I kind of just picked what I thought would be, good points to understand as we open up discussion, because this is going to be one of our longer episodes like we did with the VR.
Yeah.
Because there's so many possibilities, so many personal interpretations and scientific interpretations on what life could be like out there and how we could find it and why we can't find it, and so many questions that need to be answered that, as of right now, we do not have. But as always, as is tradition here, we're going to play Two Truths and a Lie. So for those of you who don't know, Two Truths and a Lie is a game that we play in every episode in the beginning, where we have three statements, two of them being true, one of them being lie. And my guest today will go ahead and determine which one they think is a lie, and you, audience, can go ahead and determine which one you think is lies too. So when we go through our notes, we can figure out and follow along who was right and who was wrong. So are we ready to play?
I'm going to get this wrong again, aren't I?
I don't know. I actually think you guys might have a better chance because I kind of had a harder time deciding what to lie about. So I don't know. I have a feeling I might actually get this one away.
I'm excited about this one.
You excited about this one?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I am too, definitely.
In describing what we consider, the modern search for extraterrestrial intelligence, we can consider that to be more or less, happening in, the 1960s. 1960s specifically, with, Frank Drake being one of the pioneers to look into, what could be out there.
Yeah.
So as far as a set day for whenever that could be, I believe one of the first experiments I saw run was August 8th of 1960. So, what do you think?
I gotta listen to the other two.
All right.
So far,
I'm just feeling it out.
I'm a little suspicious. I don't know.
Okay, you're a little suspicious. All right. So, statement number 2. With theories related to, being a response to the famous Arecibo message, a crop circle was found in Hampshire, United Kingdom in 2001 with almost identical imagery to what is the Arecibo message, which we'll definitely get onto later, but kind of a quick explanation for what it is, was more of a ceremonial message that we sent out than an actual attempt to converse with people or civilizations. And it was a message that, when printed out, was on a 23 by 73 grid, 2 prime numbers, which made things kind of easier. And it was filled with all types of easy to convert information, such as our DNA structure, how tall we are, our planets, our carbon-based structure, stuff like that. So information about humanity was sent in this message. And we have saw a crop circle, if you would, even though it's not technically a circle, appear in this cornfield, I believe it was. That was a near replication of the signal with some slight tweaking, where we saw the chemical representation for carbon. In the cornfield, we saw a representation for silicon.
Okay. There
was a restructuring to how DNA was played out in this Arecibo message that was found in the field. And stuff like the imagery that we use in pixelated format to describe how we were, they changed that to show that they were shorter with bigger heads.
Okay.
So to this day, we don't know. It's never been definitively debunked.
So what's the claim? That
the claim is that this could be a legitimate response, but of course, because we've never physically talked to aliens, we can't confirm that 100%.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure about this one, but I'm kind of...
Yeah, I'm on the fence about this one too.
Okay.
I want to hear the third one.
All right. And our third and final statement. The famous Allen telescope array used for daily research, which was previously impossible before this construction, has increased the productivity of data research by a factor of over 100. which to understand, let me put it in this context. Before the Allen Telescope Array was built, the way that scientists would go ahead and conduct these experiments was that they would rent a telescope for a set amount of time, and you have to share these telescopes and other observatories with other scientists hoping to run different experiments. So for the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, that you only get a limited amount of time per day or per week or whatever you can afford to run your experiments. And the amount of time for setup and all these and intervals between the times that you set up drastically reduces your ability to collect data. So having a dedicated array that works 24/7, 7 days a week for this, that's what's increased the productivity so much.
Okay, so I'm currently thinking this one's true. The one you just
Okay.
So that one's true. And I'm trying to decide between the first one and the second one. I think the first one might be a lie.
You think the first one's a lie?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on the first one.
All right. So for just a refresher, that you guys are saying you do not consider the first modern searches for extraterrestrial intelligence to happen in 1960. That's what you're saying.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
I think it'd be a bit later.
You think it was later?
I think it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was earlier. Actually.
You think it was earlier?
I think it was earlier.
Okay.
Ooh.
So you guys are disagreeing, but for different reasons. This is interesting. I did not expect that. But I'm going to give you one more chance to change your answer before I lock you guys in.
I'm sticking with first.
I'm gonna stick to this one.
You're going to stick to it. Yeah. All right. We're going to go ahead and lock that in.
All right.
So today, let's get into our research with our first, kind of little bullet point, Frank Drake, the man who is most well known for the Drake equation. But he was also, should be well known for many other things that he did. He was a pioneer in the modern search for extraterrestrial intelligence, along with other people like Carl Sagan, and a few other notable scientists, but they have much less recognition, so I didn't do any research on them. It's definitely worth the research, but for time's sake, I didn't do it. He's mounted some of the first observational attempts using radio telescopes in the 1960s with a very famous project, Ozma, which spearheaded the conversion of. He also spearheaded the conversion of the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico to a radio astronomical facility. In 1961, he would create his now famous Drake equation, which would attempt to determine numbers of advanced civilizations that we'd be able to communicate with. Okay. Along with co-designing the Pioneer plate or plaque with Carl Sagan in 1972. This would be our first physical artifact that we would send out before the famous Voyager Golden Record, which he would oversee the creation, but Carl Sagan would actually play a hand in actually designing it.
So we're both on.
I didn't say that yet.
Oh, okay.
Yet.
Here's the thing that you need to understand. To determine yes or no about this, it is very vague and up to interpretation. Okay. Because there's arguments that you could say that Hubble probably pioneered it first, even though he didn't specifically focus on search for extraterrestrial intelligence. But he's the reason why we also know about the expansion of the universe. So it's a very broad and vague topic.
Okay.
So there's more stuff that came before this too. But like I said, Frank Drake. I put him down because he would help physically create the SETI Institute, which is part of what I wanted to focus on.
Okay.
Him and Carl Sagan. So he's the other person we're about to talk about. Because they both also had a hand with, different factors of Arecibo, which was a famous observatory before we moved to the Allen Telescope Array. But Francis, I keep wanting to say Francis Drake, and I don't know why. It's Frank Drake.
Isn't Francis Drake like that? It's a fake historical figure.
I think so.
Yeah, it's in Charter Games. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I recognize that name.
But Frank Drake would also create the Arecibo message, which, like I said, we talked about in the second bullet point in our Two Truths and a Lie. But that was just a few of the many things that he has helped and worked on over the years with the SETI Institute. Okay. With Carl Sagan, he's best known for his contributions to research for extraterrestrial life, such as his And I previously did not know this, his experimental demonstration of amino acid production from basic chemicals using radiation, you know. So this was I won't say experiment, but it was a demonstration about our current theories and understanding of how life may have evolved on planet Earth, you know, with the single-celled organisms of cyanobacteria to, you know, going from a prokaryote to a eukaryotic, you know, cell structure, and then a multicellular structure and stuff like that. He was showing some of those first steps. He would also be well known for his promotion of scientific research and exploration, including having a scientific skeptical inquiry and using the scientific method. He was very pro-science, you know, and everyone more or less knows or has at least heard of the name Carl Sagan, mostly because of his award-winning 1980 television series Cosmos. The first one being Cosmos: A Personal Voyage, and it is the most widely watched series in the history of American public television. So anything that's ever been broadcasted on American waves so far has not beaten, you know, Cosmos. And I remember watching Cosmos whenever I was about 8 or 9 on PBS, and that spearheaded a lot of personal like interest. Just the way Carl Sagan explained the universe and the way he would calmly and almost philosophically talk about it, you know, made you feel even closer, I guess you would, in a sense. It was an awkward but more spiritual way to look at space and science, you know, through Carl Sagan. I think that's why it latched on to so many people. Was just you got to witness this pure, fond adoration of science and exploration. You know, you didn't see a man with an agenda. You didn't see a man who hates his life. You saw a man who truly still held the curiosity of a young boy.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's why a lot of people gravitated towards this series. And the numbers don't lie. I mean, it's been seen by over 500 million people in over 60 countries. You know, so just think about that. Because still today, people are watching it.
Yep.
Yeah.
They've
You make me want to watch it now. I've not seen it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it's definitely worth a watch. And even the modern Cosmos that came out a few years ago with Neil deGrasse Tyson and all that, it's definitely still worth a watch. You know, yes, it's a 40-year update on everything, but you know, the original series, there's just something magical about it. I can't put it personally into words, but it is definitely worth a watch. I will always attest to that. But like I said, Frank Drake and Carl Sagan were two, you know, the pioneers and founders behind the SETI Institute. You know, the most famous and with some of the conversations I've had, very conspiratorial institutes that exist in the pursuit of alien life. And I'll get into some of, you know, what I've talked about with people on like Reddit and stuff about why they hate SETI. So I'll talk about that in a little bit.
Interesting.
Oh yeah, dude, it's so funny. It made me laugh. So it's a little, very, very broad, you know, brushstroke. SETI Institute is a not-for-profit research organization that was first incorporated in 1984. They have a mission to learn the origins of life and its nature throughout the universe to help future generations and our current generation understand and progress. The Institute today consists of, you know, 3 main, I guess, focal points. We have the Carl Sagan Center, which is devoted to studying life in the universe. When we think of SETI, this is what we typically think about.
Yeah.
Then we have the Center of Education, which is dedicated to helping students and educators with astronomy, astrobiology, and space science. And then finally, we have the Center for Public Outreach, which produces a general science radio show called Big Picture Science, which is also a podcast, along with the SETI Talks, a colloquium weekly series. I don't know why I struggled to say that word. But let's get into the famous Allen Telescope Array real quick. You know, this is what really kind of pushed SETI to be able to do the work that we see them do today. This is how they're able to do so much research so much quicker now. A dedicated telescope solely for, you know, the research of SETI full time, which was very important to understand, was almost impossible for so long due to the fact that it was so expensive to make. It required a generous donation, which they received by one Paul Allen, who was the co-founder of Microsoft. So, you know, That's where some people also throw some conspiracies in.
Yeah,
Of
yeah,
course they do.
of course.
But from everything I read, it was just, a generous donation. There was nothing else to it that I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like I said, that donation, really helped most of the cost of building such a large scale instrument. I didn't get the specific details, but there was something like 25, different satellites set out in a pseudo random arrangement. So that way, whenever they point out and look at the sky, you can almost think of it as a stitching an image together between like 25 different cameras. Yeah, so think about it like that. And the way that these things work is that they also help correct any wrong information that one telescope may receive as well. So it's much more efficient. And since this is running, all week long, every week, you're going to get a lot more information. This is what led to its factor of increasing by 100, versus what they've been able to do in the past, which you had, like I said, you had to schedule time from a very specific observatory, and you got to have everything, in place beforehand before you go out and do any data collecting. Ooh, sorry, my throat is killing me right now. But this is what we know about SETI now. This is what everyone kind of goes to first. Is like this is the Allen Telescope Array. But like I said, the first thing to pioneer this research was Project Ozma, which was started by Frank Drake. This was a pioneering research in 1960 at the National Radio Astronomy Observatory in Green Bank, West Virginia, which used a radio telescope diameter of 85 feet to examine the stars Tau Ceti, spelled Ceti, and Epsilon Eridani. The receiver was tuned to 21 centimeters, which is part of another conspiracy later. This was used as the wavelength of natural radiation of hydrogen, which is considered kind of a universal standard that any civilization can understand. So that's why that 21 centimeter, wavelength was determined. Now, there are people who argue that it's arbitrary and a waste of time, but then there are people who say that until we find a better measure, this is the best one we have, that can be universally understood. So there's a lot of back and forth about what people think about that. Interesting little tidbit I found about this. At first, when they actually received a signal, and they later determined it was a false signal from a high altitude airplane. Yeah,
Interesting.
Little side note.
How did you get that mixed up?
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Well, it also reminds me of whenever they discovered the Great Background Radiation. The first telescope that they used whenever they got that feedback, they thought it was interference, and when they went out to the telescope, it was filled with bird shit, and they said, "Oh, well, that has to be the reason." So then they cleaned all that out, and then they went back to their research, and then they actually discovered, the great radio background noise.
Oh,
yeah, they discovered it wasn't, the bird poop. It was actual, not messages, but signals that were being radiated from everywhere.
Huh.
So, I mean,
that's cool.
You can't always know if it's true or not. That's why you got to go back, retest and hypothesize.
Yeah. But you do also have to keep in mind that sometimes, like, it's some really dumb stuff out there.
Oh yeah.
You think you find something and it's like, oh no, it's just a boot. Like,
this is why testing and reobservation is so important. The scientific method exists for a reason.
Yeah.
But yeah. There was a second Project Ozma that happened that used a telescope in the same area that had like 300 feet, but I didn't see anything notable that happened with that one. So,
all right.
But yeah, I mean, of course, as always, these scientists are working harder. They're trying to find other advancements and stuff. This is where we go back to Frank Drake whenever he goes to Puerto Rico and tries to convert the Arecibo Observatory to a radio astronomical observatory. When he does this and it's finished, this is whenever they create the Arecibo message, an interstellar radio message carrying basic information about humanity and Earth sent to the globular star cluster M13. The The reason that was picked, it was because it just was overhead and easy to reach at the time of the ceremony. There was no specific reason. They didn't wait. Because it was used as a demonstration of human technological achievement rather than a real attempt to contact civilization. It was launched one time on November 16th, 1974, at a ceremony to mark the remodeling of the Arecibo. So we're going to go back into that hoax now real quick about the Arecibo answer, as it's called. It was a hoax made in 2001, and we know it's a hoax because we know the people who did it. Made in 2001 in a crop field in Hampshire, United Kingdom, a near replica of the same 23 by 73 grid with changes made to the carbon chemical molecule to silicon. They rewrote the DNA structure and replaced humans with shorter figures with large bulbous heads, with a large bulbous head. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was a lie. We know for a fact that it was a hoax because we know who did it. Yeah,
I was kind of hoping it was true, to be honest. I kind of like the mystery behind it.
Yeah, it would have been nice, but like I said, we know who did it, so there's no mystery there. But I just, interesting because I didn't write it down, but it was reportedly found near an observatory in the UK. So to kind of add to that extra element
yeah, that's
to be honest, UK never really gets anything interesting anyway, so I wouldn't expect it to be all that true.
Well, I know in the 90s, in the 80s and 90s especially, there was a big rise in the UK with, suspected and faked crop circles in my research that I found. So I wouldn't necessarily say there's not a lot. It's just a lot of it is confirmed hoaxes.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. But now it's time to get to some of the fun stuff, some of the tools and some of the, theoretical models that we use to, hypothesize the future of aliens and our place amongst the galaxy. Of course, the ever famous Drake equation. A very, very quick rundown. This is an equation used to simulate scientific dialogue. The purpose of the actual function of the equation is that it approximates a number of civilizations capable of radio communication. It combines all questions about life that theoretically need to be answered and understood to calculate calculate the number of civilizations that live up to this standard in a galaxy. Which, like I said, we use radio communication as that measure. I have the formula written down here. I could not even begin to tell you how to explain to write it down. So if you're interested, there's a lot of unique factors and questions behind each part of the equation. Definitely worth a look at, but I am not the guy to explain it to you. I'm sorry. But with this famous Drake equation comes, of course, Fermi's paradox, which seems to explain, or that seems to ask the question, if there's all these high probable chances of all these advanced civilizations around us, where are they? There's a famous conversation when this happened. Of course, so many people have asked this beforehand, but it's named after Fermi, Enrico Fermi, because of the conversation he had during lunch with some of his peers, where they were talking first about space exploration, and then, of course, conversation as it does evolves, and then went into the possibility of extraterrestrial intelligence. And where Fermi famously, but we can't determine whether he actually said it. He just simply replied, with all this there, with all the possibilities there, where are they?
Yeah, and so, it's it's an honest question, because it's you really think about it, it's so simple. Like, you got to find a planet that has water, can sustain life, and that's it can't be just this one planet we're currently sitting on. There has to be. Like,
we have found other planets that do have similar sort of, I want to say structures, but obviously the builds of Earth. So it's not impossible that there are intelligent life.
No, it's not impossible. And possible explanations to Fermi's paradox include that intelligent life is just extremely rare, to that the lifetime of an intelligent civilization is actually relatively short in the grand scheme of time. So this being that advanced civilizations have already surpassed the point of radio communication in whatever point, and then they died off.
Yep.
So that's why we don't see them. And then there's also, that they have, advanced enough technology that they are currently undetectable. So they have surpassed our ability to even observe them, is another idea. And there's other possibilities too that people hypothesize, but these are like three of the famous ones. And a kind of an important metric to understand, the concept of advanced civilizations is the ever famous Kardashev scale, which Carl Sagan actually did a little bit of tweaking too. But with the general, original Kardashev scale, it was developed in 1964 by Soviet astronomer Nikolai Kardashev. It is a method of measuring a civilization's level of technological advancement based on how much energy they can use. A tier 1 civilization can use and store all energy available on its planets, both efficiently and, without destroying the planets. A tier 2 civilization can use and control all the energy in its entire planetary system, including its home star. So that means if we were a tier 2 civilization, we'd be able to use the resources and all the energy available on the sun and all the 8 planets, efficiently. And with a tier 3, this civilization, they can control energy at the scale of an entire galaxy. So yeah, if we were a tier 3, in theory, we'd be able to control every aspect of our galaxy, of the Milky Way galaxy, every corner that we could reach. So, and with the approximation of 100 million suns being the low end, that's a lot of energy, So that's kind of been the basic metric that we measure everything on. That's where a lot of people go to. And now comes my favorite part of this conversation. And this is where, to me, sparks a lot of debate and hypotheticals. Because, yes, we talk about Fermat's paradox and Drake's equation, and you both seem to be of the mind of you assume it's out there, that alien life exists, so we should see them. We're going to talk about the Great Filter. And if you two don't know what the Great Filter is, and for our audience, this was a little fact that I've heard about but never really researched, didn't think it was important until I actually dug into it. So a very, very simplified explanation. The Great Filter is anything capable of stopping the life of a civilization from advancing and kills it off. So we cannot predict where such a filter lies on a theoretical scale of intelligent advancement, which means we also can't tell if we've already surpassed it or if there's one ahead of us. We have no idea.
Huh.
So
that's kind of scary.
It is scary. It's terrifying, and because knowing where it lies in our personal advancement as a civilization will help us determine whether or not life is prevalent or not. Which means, think about it like this. And it's an interesting conclusion to draw. I'm going to do my best to put it simply. It was actually more terrifying for us to find more advanced civilizations than for us to not find any. Just saying that, is that something you would agree with?
I think that's yes and no for me, because I can see it both ways. It's more terrifying insofar as if they're as advanced as us, or more so, we could be in a lot of danger.
Let me rephrase this question. Instead of thinking, oh, what could they do to us or anything, just think about what it means for us. Not the possibility that they'll come and conquer us, they'll kill us off, enslave us. Don't think about any of that. Just the fact that they exist would mean something about us. And does that idea scare you, or does it make you feel relieved to find that answer, that there's life in the universe?
Yeah, that's the thing I'm thinking about, because I feel like it would be, I would feel a certain amount of relief, knowing that there is more life out there. But at the same time, it kind of puts your world into perspective.
It does.
And it's always scary when you can see the size of the universe,
It does, but here's the point that I wanted to get to when I say it's a scary thing to find more intelligent life. Because think about it like this. If there is a theoretical, great filter, and we find only like 1 or 2 aliens, civilizations out there, we still won't be able to say 100% for sure. However, it would be easier to say that we've already surpassed that great filter, whether it's the step of moving from single-celled life to multicellular life, whether it's from the evolution of going from, all water-based life to moving to a terrestrial-based life, anything like that, communications, language development, anything like that could be great, great filters that civilizations have to conquer, and most of them won't. Only having a handful of civilizations out there wouldn't be as scary as to say we found 100 civilizations or 1,000 civilizations, because that would tell us we have not hit the great filter yet.
Yeah.
That would tell us that there's going to be a mass dying off, and we may not be able to surpass it. We don't know if any life would be able to surpass it. We have no idea.
Yeah.
So it's kind of counterintuitive with the argument of the great filter, because that it says the more life we find, the more likely we as a civilization will die off. And it's not because of war, it's not because of aliens conquering us, it's because we could not advance. That's what that says. And that to me is truly terrifying.
That we can't advance.
Yeah, that we...
It's been a topic as well that would we want to advance then if we have this fear of, if we do, we could end up dying?
I mean, I think as a species, we'll always be naturally driven to try to pass this and see what we can do as a civilization and a species. But on just the large scale of things, I couldn't tell you, because like I said, that we have nothing to measure this theoretical basis on. We know it's more or less possible, but we don't know how to even begin measuring it, because there is no other alien life that we have found. And like I said, possible explanations could be that they are intentionally hiding from us, either because they're so advanced, or they're hiding from other civilizations who may be more warlike, to them being completely died off, or it could be that they have yet to achieve radio communication.
I kind of feel like if they are looking at us, if there's a higher civilization out there looking at us at this moment, they probably don't want to make themselves known, just for the simple fact that, like, for example, have you ever seen those videos of scientists who take like a robotic ape and they put it in the middle of the forest, and they try to blend it into the environment just to get the most like unfiltered look at ape life? This is basically what, if this is the case, that they're just looking at us hiding, they're just looking at us so they can study us, so they can get like a good look at it without having to interrupt. Oh, like let's just see what happens if we don't step under territory.
Right. And this goes back into what I personally like to call the Star Trek approach, where you have a sufficiently advanced civilization that is able to find other life out in the universe with the capability of evolving to a sufficiently advanced universe, but they're not quite there yet. They would take a more observer's approach. They wouldn't interact, but they would sit there and observe. So if that's to say happening to us, it's very hard to say, because like I said, their technology would be advanced enough to hide from us, and we'll never know.
Yeah.
So we have to get to their level, in order to be able to answer these questions. And that could
Alternatively, my mind thinks about War of the World, because I grew up listening to that on repeat. That was one of my favorite records of all time. Perhaps one of my still favorites. The idea of they watched us to attack us as well.
Oh, sorry, I needed to get some water. But yeah, no, H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds was an amazing, amazing story. I also love the little tidbit that it was played on the radio at one point, and nobody said it was a book. Nobody said it was a joke. Everyone believed that who was listening.
It caused huge panic, didn't it?
Literally being invaded by Martians.
I don't remember this exactly how it happened, but I'm pretty sure what happened was the majority of the people who believed that it was actually happening, where people kind of started listening to it while it was like in the middle of the show, because I'm sure at the beginning they're like, we're about to pretend War of the Worlds.
No, they did not.
They didn't?
They did not.
Just cold open?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So little funny fact, they had to like call like an hour later, tell everyone, no, it was just a story. Because at the time, I don't think anybody really knew who H.G. Wells was. He wasn't the famous author we know him today.
Yeah.
So
that's so cool.
Yeah.
The book itself is actually extremely boring. I had to read it, and I didn't enjoy it. The book itself was dull.
I actually enjoyed it, but I also, the last time I read it, I think I was like 13. So
I really like the Tom Cruise movie. I'm just gonna be fully honest. If you haven't seen it recently, it's aged like wine. It's pretty good. There's a few.
That doesn't say much, considering my first opinion was that it was crap from the get-go. Yeah, I thought it was crap from the get
Oh
go.
no, I liked it. I loved it.
The way almost every character reacts in there, I'm just thinking you are doing everything wrong. You are doing everything wrong. Your fear is justified, but your fear is getting you killed.
I think my girlfriend would kind of agree with you to a certain extent. That being said, though, there's some good moments where I'm just thinking about the scene where Tom Cruise, like they're like the lightning is hitting the ground and everything, and he's trying to, like calm his daughter down, and the daughter's like, "That's not normal," and he's like, "Oh no, it's like 4th of July, right?" And then like as soon as one gets closer to them, everybody just freaks out and goes indoors. It's like everything's fine, everything's fine. And the fact that both of them were equally terrified by what was going on,
Mm-hmm.
like the fact that a lot of people just instinctively knew something was wrong, even if they couldn't quite explain it. I mean, you know what? I think that's like kind of accurate. We usually know when something's wrong.
I mean, yeah, and human response to always deny, our fear and tragedy. I get it, but I don't know. I guess I'm a little more open-minded to possibilities like that. So in theory, I'd like to think I wouldn't freak out like that.
Yeah.
But of course, until it happens, we'll never be able to say.
But I kind of back to the topic at hand. I was going to say something. It's really funny. I think I had. Yeah, about advanced civilizations. And kind of and the concept of them invading us. Part of me kind of thinks that the chances of an alien civilization invading this planet are very low. Just for this, like, I mean, just looking at our, like, I don't know if this would happen or not, but just looking at our civilization, it's our history is riddled with war and just destruction and factions going against each other. You would think that a civilization that might have advanced quicker wouldn't have had as many battles or would have been a little more connected.
I'd actually argue they probably went through more, or at least more severe cases. Because well, it's hard to say because we always measure everything off of our human experience, but that doesn't necessarily mean that alien life, went through the same problems. That they went through the same, troubles. They may have had situations on their planets, hypothetically assuming they evolved that way,
Yeah.
that they would, have challenges that forced them to be nicer as a, species. So they probably didn't have as much war. Or they probably dealt with much more difficult situations, resources making them compete more so they could be much more warlike, which is the whole reason that their technology advanced so much. We see a lot of our own technology advance a lot because of military application.
Yeah. That is also something to keep in mind.
So it's hard to say one way or the other. All we can do is speculate.
Yeah.
And absolutely. Then, for the people who are of the mind that they're already sold that aliens exist and we've been contacted before and this, that, the other, like such as Roswell, the Pascagoula incident, what is it, Betty and Barney Hill's abduction, all kinds of stories that are worth looking into, all kinds of tales, both big and small. I personally am of the belief that, yes, aliens are real. They have visited us before, especially because I am a big, believer in the Men in Black, which is a subject worth its own time. But, for those who may not know or may not know the, true story and they only know about the TV series and the comics and all that, it's a belief in organization, not necessarily government owned, but some people believe it has ties to our government, but definitely operated by aliens to some extent, if not the whole extent, where there would be cases of people who would have interactions or witness, alien craft or alien beings, and the Men in Black would come in and pretty much do everything to shut them up.
Yeah.
With everything from taking, I remember I heard one story, and I won't be able to source it right now, and I'm paraphrasing a lot. But this story was of a man who got a phone call after he saw an incident, was able to pick up a piece of scrap metal from this incident.
Yeah.
And he got a call later that night, asking him about this metal shard. And, the voice was very robotic, very monotone, but the dude asked if he could, speak with him, about the metal shard. And then what happened is that as soon as the dude agreed and got off the phone, he heard the knock on the door.
Yeah.
And it was the Men in Black.
Yeah,
as soon as you get off the phone,
yeah.
it's like, It could have been half an hour to wait. It could have been, 2 hours. The dude was there in 30 seconds, So it's
Also, you've
terrifying.
got like the security footage that you see as well of these supposed men in black visiting people who have seen things.
Yeah. And well, the story is a little more interesting because two things that needs to be realized. This dude's image was like the most plastic, pale looking skin, if you would, with like ruby red lips and a very monotone, almost robotic voice.
Yeah.
And this happened in a time before cell phones. So that also needs to be taken into account. Because yes, if I had a cell phone, of course, I could call you when I'm right outside your door. But I think this happened in like the mid 80s.
And I think it's really crazy how all these stories about the Men in Black. But by the way, this whole thing is very conspiracy theory-y.
Mm-hmm.
But all the stories regarding the Men in Black seem to describe them in a very similar way. They all seem to have that creepy, pale, plasticky skin.
There's some variations to stories I've read, but more or less there's some facts or details about these descriptions that basically just give you the idea that there's just something not human.
They're basically the definition of the deep end of the uncanny valley.
Yes, the theory about surrogates and replacements. Some people say they're robots. Some people think they're organic clones or representations of humans that just aren't. They're like 95% there, stuff like that.
If I remember correctly as well, they're meant to be like really tall and bold, a lot of them.
A lot of them are claimed to be over 6 feet tall, bald, all wearing, the same black suit, white shirt, the trilby or the fedora hat they'll use on top of their heads. They'll refer to each other by numbers, not names. Yeah, it's all really interesting. But to kind of finish up the story, this supposed Man in Black came up to talk to this dude and was telling them how he needed that shard back and that he was not supposed to send it off to any observatory to be researched. Obviously, the dude didn't listen. He did actually mail it to a university to be studied, and kind of as a fear tactic that they used, the Man in Black agent put a penny on the table, and I believe the report said that this man watched the penny start to change in color, and then it would turn blue, and then it turned fuzzy, and then it disappeared.
Oh,
yeah,
that's weird. That's
it.
You know what? This could just be it could just be somebody making up a story. But if it is a made up story, it is very it is.
Well, here's the thing. With the shard that was researched, they found elements that or compounds that they could not identify, and the shard was actually eventually lost.
Huh.
We don't know where it is. So
it'd be hard to lose something like that, surely.
I mean, I get human error, but at the same time, with the way that the story is presented, you want to believe more in that there is something else going on behind the scenes, and that's kind of where I like to lean on.
Yeah,
it does let the mind wander.
Yeah, it does make you wonder, like, what really happened.
Yeah. Go ahead.
But I mean, like I said, there's all kinds of alien stories and speculations on life, and like I said, I am team alien. I believe aliens exist. I do.
Yeah.
But to say to what extent aliens exist,
yeah,
I have no idea.
That's the tricky part,
because there's also a difference in understanding between just alien life and intelligence, because they do not evolve at the same time. They evolve very, very different and far times in our own civilization, because we have a lot of, terrestrial life, but we would not classify them as intelligent. And that's an important distinction when people talk about alien, life versus alien intelligence, because you can go to another distant planet, you can find, hypothetically bacteria and plants and stuff like that. Yes, you have found alien life. That doesn't mean you have found alien intelligent life.
Yeah.
Which is what most people think of whenever we talk about aliens.
And I do think most people would agree that there is alien life, as you described it, out there, and the intelligent alien life. That's the part where people start
then I guess I should be more specific. I do believe in an intelligent alien life, but to what degree, I don't know.
Yeah, it's very, very extremely possible that there is intelligent alien life, but they could be on the same track we are. They could be sending a rocket into space, and that's maybe as far as they gotten.
Yeah,
and we don't know. We don't know, because I would be hyped. I would be super hyped if we found a plant, leaves and everything on another planet. That would be the most exciting thing ever.
Oh, are you kidding me? I think we as a
It'd be progress, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I think we as a species would probably collectively lose our shit.
This is why I want them to like.
Oh, definitely.
I want them to look deeper into like Europa, like the moon.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's planned explorations for that too. Just when, we don't know
exactly.
But yeah, kind of to go back to the SETI Institute a little bit, I did want to bring up some of the conversations I had on Reddit.
Oh, that's gonna be fun.
Oh yeah. So many people do not care or believe that SETI has some ulterior motives. Most of the people I talked to, one of them was, an electrical engineer and everything.
Yeah.
We were talking a bit about about the selected radio frequencies that SETI uses in its search for extraterrestrial life. One person I talked to said that he thinks it is a waste of time because a sufficiently advanced alien civilization would no longer be using radio waves. I said, that's true. But we're not looking for currently advanced, to what extent a currently advanced civilization is at. We are just looking for evidence that they, crossed this threshold that we theoretically believe in. I did not find it in my research because I kind of had a hard time figuring out how to look it up. But I remember seeing a research paper that basically more or less said that we have no reason to believe or even suspect that the evolution of a civilization would ever deviate from the way we have evolved, more or less, when it comes to technological advancements and its time scale. Although that time scale is kind of up for debate. But more or less, any civilization in theory would go through these same steps. That's what this research paper was saying. So then whenever I brought that up to this Redditor, explaining, we don't need to find what they're currently using. We just need to find evidence that they've used this before, and stuff like that. And then they would always throw out something along the lines of, well, who's to say that they would even use, such technology? What if they, were on a planet that forced them to evolve and use a completely different way to communicate that we have yet to know?
Yeah.
Well, then, of course, we can throw in the argument that they've made sufficiently advanced technology that has surpassed ours. In which case, we go back to the argument that doesn't say that they're necessarily gone. We just cannot find them because we haven't advanced enough. But they said that reasoning is enough to make, SETI completely useless, which I don't believe so, because then there's also other ways to detect, possible alien life out there, such as, looking for megastructures, which is, honestly not, an ideal way to look, but it is possible, such as Dyson spheres and stellar engines are two things that are worth looking into for a, tier 1 or tier 2 civilization to use. So it's not without the realm of possibility that there's other ways to find it, but in my opinion, the using the radio broadcast method is probably going to be your best bet. Because look at planet Earth. We have been broadcasting radio since its conception in the early 40s or 30s, 40s, and for 80 plus years we have been broadcasting radio signals. So for anybody within that 80 light year limit, they'll be able to pick up on our recordings. It's never going to go away.
And I think something else we have to think about is I feel like the simpler the method for finding extraterrestrial life is, it might benefit us, because there's a lot of stuff that I like gravity. We know that exists everywhere.
Yeah, but gravity is kind of weird because we don't actually have the fundamental understanding of how gravity truly operates. We have a theoretical subparticle that you can find on the the standard model of particles and stuff like that and forces. We have a hypothetical one called the gravitron, but we've never found evidence for it. It's the only subparticle that we have no evidence to support. We just think it's there because we have no other explanation to explain gravity.
Yeah.
So
even that is still a mystery. Yeah.
So that could be.
We don't know a lot about things about our own planet, let alone space. So the fact that we're looking seems almost we're looking too far ahead.
Well, I think it's still worth looking that far ahead, because I think any advantage is an advantage worth pursuing. But to kind of put in a scale with how far we've been able to search in space, you could say we've had about 10 glasses full of water from an ocean. That is how much we've been able to observe. Which is kind of the metric that I heard thrown around a lot whenever I was looking this up. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't learn, because even in those 10, glasses of water, we've been able to understand so much about, astronomy and exoplanets and stuff like that. TRAPPIST-1 being a very, very famous set of exoplanets and star systems that we're looking at, because there's like 3 planets, I believe, that exist in that Goldilocks zone. That and it's close enough within our relative stellar neighborhood that theoretically it's possible to assume that life is out there.
I gotta say, it's amazing how much we've advanced in the last 50 years, just alone, in terms of what we've discovered about the universe, what we've discovered about our own galaxy and Mars, and hell, like even the ocean. Like, so who knows? Like in 100 years, we probably found something.
Yeah, and when we talk about also the pursuit for alien life and all that, undoubtedly you're also going to get into the ancient astronaut theories and all that. Yes, it's not something I personally like talking about unless in a humorous stance, but I will at least say I cannot definitively debunk that theory, so it is worth discussing.
What is the theory? I've not heard of it before.
The ancient astronaut theory that our whole civilization and advancement as a human species only came about due to the interference of ancient extraterrestrials. Yeah. But that's completely.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, that's what completely destroyed the History Channel, was the Ancient Alien series.
I roll my eyes so hard.
Oh God, it's so stupid, and so many stretches of the imagination.
It is. It's ridiculous.
Yes, because here's the thing that like bugs me the most about everything. The whole obviously the Incans can have built their pyramids. That's impossible. What? Like, it's a rock. Like, here's something people keep forgetting. Ancient civilizations were really good at a lot of stuff that we can't figure out right now. And I say this because they have to think harder. Keep in mind, these people don't have calculators, yet they managed to figure out math.
Well, here's the thing. More importantly, the Mayans were able to come up with the concept of zero before the Western world, which many people would argue was more advanced than the Mayans.
Amen. And it's so stupid. I just don't even know where to start. You can't just say that every great human advancement was because the aliens figured it out.
Because you can't figure it out doesn't mean they didn't.
Exactly.
That's how I put it.
Amen.
And I use the argument of, just because a literary expert can't explain astrobiology doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Doesn't mean somebody isn't capable of doing it. It's not everybody has the same skill sets. And so whenever we talk about, ancient astronaut theorists and all that, one of the most famous, Georgios Tsoukalos, crazy hair. I actually, whenever I was 19, recreated a picture of him, that famous pose, aliens. I create that whenever I had my hair just wild and everything. And it made me laugh because it's so ridiculous. But like I said, I cannot 100% say it is bullshit. I will say, in my humble opinion, it's 99.99999% bullshit.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I will think so.
It sounds BS.
Yes. And it's a fun thing to think about.
Absolutely.
Because they talk, Puma Punku, the Nazca lines, obviously the Egyptian pyramids, the Mayan pyramids, all these other locations that people haven't been able to explain. What was it, like the Bangong pipes or something in China?
Yeah.
There's these iron rods that were found in, rocks that were dated to be millions of years old, and, seemingly perfect pipes that exist for miles. Nobody knows how they fucking work or anything. It's like all these things, yes, I get it. We don't have the answers for it now. Aliens should not be the first thing we jump to.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm not saying we shouldn't have that as an option on the table. I'm just saying it should be one of the later things that we consider. Rule everything else out.
It's a nice idea. It's a nice thought to think that for some strange reason, something beyond the stars wanted to help us. But it's not plausible.
Things where I want to say, oh, that's such a nice idea. We're going to put that right on the fridge. And then never. That's what I think of when people talk to me about this. I'm just like, oh, darling. You tried. You tried.
Yeah.
We'll give them that.
You know, I like it is fun. It is fun to play with those ideas because I know, like one famous thing that I will say to this day, I can't disprove. Dealing back with like the Nazca lines and Nazca artworks was that there's a famous petroglyph of this carving of an alien-looking dude. Some say it looks like a monkey, but some people say it looks like an alien that's carved into the side of a mountain. That's one thing that they point to as like a representation for alien life. Maybe it's a dude in a spacesuit. You know, there's stuff in like Mayan sculptures that show, I believe, like one of their great kings or warriors. And I remember they took this picture, flipped it on its side, and they were drawing, they were highlighting all these different things that they're holding on to, that this hero is holding on to, and said, now doesn't that look like a space capsule with all him like holding onto these different controls and everything? I'm just like, you're stretching so far, man. Like
it's such a reach. It is such a reach.
It's such a reach.
At the same time, I kind of get where the thought comes from, and it makes sense that you would want to explain some stuff with the aliens did it, but you can't just do that for everything.
No,
like like the pyramids. That's such an easy one. Like
we have found enough evidence to support a model that humans built it.
Exactly.
So to jump still to aliens is beyond stupid to me.
Yeah, and
we had more than enough evidence to prove that the ancient Egyptians were capable of understanding these mathematical concepts and applying it, at such an early age, in human history. We have evidence to prove that. So why do we still go back to this? I get it's mind-boggling. I get it's hard to understand today, but there have been simple practices to explain. A lot of people like to say, without wheels, how the hell did these move? How the hell did they move these 80-ton stones? How the hell did they turn around corners and everything like that? I watched a video of a dude who was able to turn his entire house on a tiny rock about the size of my palm, because this guy understood the principles of levers and fulcrums, and that is more than enough to explain how they moved these stone slabs. How they were able to turn them using an appropriate fulcrum point and a small enough surface. You're able to move these rocks and change their directions however you please.
I also sort of feel like back then, like human was just the human brain, or not maybe, I don't mean the human brain, but just humanity as a whole was a lot less restrained by like what they can't, like they probably tried a lot more daring shit than we could even come up with. Like,
well, again, because they didn't have the years of history that we do in our current civilization to understand what's good, what's not good, with the world, and like food. Back then they didn't necessarily know what was safe, what was not safe, what makes food better, how to preserve things. They didn't know that, So like they would have all this time to practice and experiment with things, and that's how I believe they were able to create such monumental things to last the test of time.
Also, this just takes away so much credit from the brown people. Let's be
from the what?
The brown people. Let's be fully honest.
What's the brown people?
The native Indian.
Oh, okay. You know what I mean? Okay, I was like, what? I had no idea where you were going with that for a second.
The Egyptians. I'm sorry. That was such a broad term.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing too. We also don't know what the Egyptians look like. We have no idea. We have no modern record to look back to for their genealogy. So we don't know if they were black.
We have assumptions.
We have theories, but to this day, we have no idea. We have no clue. And we can't trust, archaeological depictions that we found, because a lot of those were greatly exaggerated too. Yeah. So, like I said, we will never know about that, but it's definitely takes away from human accomplishment to say that we were incapable of doing that.
Yeah.
Because I think people would like to apply ignorance to sort of feel better about the facts that we don't understand now.
Well, ignorance breeds arrogance, which only feeds more ignorance. There's so many things that people talk about too. Like there's the theory that Egyptians had light bulbs because of a famous depiction of what we assume to be a flower. It's a flower, and yet people say no, it's a light bulb because you can see the filament there, you can see the coils there. It's like, what? There's another one that says that they had spaceships and helicopters and planes and submarines because you can see these depictions on the top of it. I'm like, okay, you are just pulling so much out of your ass right now. It blows my mind.
Stretching it like a laugh.
God, it's so stupid.
Like big old
It's like when people see a face in something. Well, it's obviously not a face, but just because it looks like one doesn't mean it is,
Yeah,
kind of
that's
thing.
right there.
Yeah. So it's just the humans trying to figure out the stuff that they don't get, and it's it makes I get it. I do it all the time. I think we all do it all the time, but it's like we kind of have to be realistic. Yeah, I know we're talking about aliens and we're trying to figure out like let's be real here. But yeah, I fully believe that humanity did pretty much almost everything alone. We just figured it out. We figured out how like weight and stuff works. Just it's simple, really. It's in front of us. It's physical. Like I think people can just figure it out. We can figure it out. We have. But yeah, ancient aliens.
Complete horseshit. Sorry, I'm gonna until you prove me wrong. I'm gonna be of the mind that it's complete horseshit.
Yep.
Yeah, same, pretty much.
And to kind of go back to one thing I was talking about earlier, what I call the my Star Trek hypothesis. About them just being passive observers. I do like to think about that in the context of them being researchers and observers, because I go back to the fact about the Great Filter. And that is, for me, is a more comforting idea that they will not more or less interact. I will say that they have occasionally interacted with us, but more or less they leave us be because they have an understanding of a great filter, or they're in the process of understanding, where that great filter is. We don't know. The most common depiction of aliens is, the Greys. Could that be the only, active civilization, or one of only a very few? And, we could have been, one of the first civilizations that they found. And so they're using us as their experiment to figure out where this theoretical great filter is. And so that may be a reason that they're not interacting with us until we either surpass that threshold or we succumb to it. And that's what I like to personally, subscribe to, is that idea that they're just waiting to see what we do based on their hypothesis.
Most like we're a test.
Yeah. I'm kind of leaning to believe that, to be honest. If out of all the, what are the aliens up to theories, that one kind of makes the most sense to me. The fact that we're just being observed. I mean, yeah, I get it. We probably do the same thing too.
Probably, yeah.
I'm personally quite a cynical person. So whilst I don't believe aliens exist, I'd like to believe it, but I don't think there's enough evidence for me to believe that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, I totally get that too. Like personally, it's there's a lot of skepticism that, and I try to really balance myself out when it comes to this, and I want to believe that there's aliens, just because, I mean, it's so big. The universe is so big. How can there not be? But at the same time, I don't know. Like there's all these like hoaxes that go on all the time, and I just sort of believe that 80% of it is BS.
Definitely a huge percent of it is fake. I can't remember who this guy was, but there was a whole Netflix movie on him where he'd claimed to record the Greys and have photos of aliens and strange light videos in his backyard. Like he was a father to several different children he'd had with these aliens, and they called him and like. And that's like, obviously either someone who is so far in their delusions or so far up their own ass they don't know what they're talking about, or someone who is trying to bullshit people.
Oh yeah, it's one of those guys. Yeah, no, it's such a common thing, and I'm guessing a lot of people who hoax this stuff are just doing it out of fame, money. There was a couple and their kid, and they tried to hoax a UFO, and I think it was a balloon or something, right? But the kid ended up giving away the fact that it was a hoax. That was great. It's fantastic. It really is.
I've not heard of that one.
Yeah, I forgot when it happened. It was a recent one. It happened at least within the last I want to say the last 15 years. It was on the news and everything. It's like, whoa, aliens, right? And then the kid just spills the beans.
Yeah, that sounds like a kid thing to do, to be fair.
Yeah. And I think he did it on accident too. It wasn't like he was purposely trying to like get his parents in trouble, but he definitely did it on accident.
Bless.
And it really is. I'm still holding out hope that one day, you know what, with the whole the whole thing with that footage being released recently. Wow. Did you see it? I think was it who released it? It was the Pentagon? Was it the FBI? No. I think it was the Pentagon. They released footage of an unidentified flying object that they confirmed was completely unidentified. Is it aliens? We don't know, but
No, I have not seen that. I want to see that now.
yeah, it's not super flashy. It's all black and white, but it is basically just a weird blurry black object flying in space. And the people commenting over it are like, "What is that?" They don't know what it is. I think they were military pilots, and they had no idea what it was. They couldn't identify it. It was moving weird. So yeah, it was 100% unidentified and flying, and it was an object,
A UFO.
a UFO, just a legitimate UFO. And
That's kind of cool.
yeah, like I said, the Pentagon released this footage, and they straight up just told everyone, "We don't know what it is."
Gives you room to hope and believe, doesn't it?
Yeah, it kind of does, and I will say it did kind of give me hope. But yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of I say that's some of the most solid evidence we've had in a while.
Yeah.
And I mean, there is always like the again the faked evidence that could almost be believable if it wasn't for those like things that you can just tell something's not quite right with it being quote unquote real.
No, I mean that's why one of our best tools to date still is the Occam's razor. The simplest answer is usually the right one.
Unfortunately, so.
I mean, it's not always true, but if it's not, you got to be willing to prove it. You got to be able to have the evidence to prove it. So, because I think for anything else, doesn't matter what you're looking into. Misinformation is probably the most dangerous thing that exists. In my opinion. So.
That's why you got to look at everything with a grain of salt, or sometimes a whole bag of the stuff.
Yeah, no kidding, right? But anyways, this has been a very, very fun topic to cover, and I'm so glad you two have been able to join us. But I think we've more than enough beat this dead horse, because there's so many other more niche topics that fall under this umbrella, like I said, Men in Black, other alien abduction sites, possible, footage that's undiscovered or unresolved. I know there's more than enough NASA footages from, the ISS or space launches where astronauts would claim to see things, all kinds of stuff that would fall under, the search for extraterrestrial life and theories and stuff like that.
And I will say it's always a little hard to talk about this stuff just because of the simple fact that a lot of this conspiratorial stuff that goes around it is very clearly BS.
Yeah, it makes it hard to get, more, I guess, educated, discussions out of it when you have so many idiots out there willing to just spout whatever because they can scream the loudest.
And if, let's say, you do have a very solid, theory about something, but it's a little too similar to something some crackhead said, I don't like, I'm kind of, I don't want to be associated with those people.
Well, I get it, but that's also where it's very important to have information and always leave things open to never saying that this is what it is. Leave the possibility open that you can be wrong, and that's where I find you're a little more able to express, a little more out there opinions.
Yeah.
And you're going to be taken a little more seriously. Is that you leave the possibility open that you're skeptical of yourself and what you're thinking.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that Carl Sagan was promoting was scientific skeptical inquiry. Take everything with a grain of salt. Be willing to accept if you were wrong. Stuff like that. So, But like I said, this has been a very fun topic, to cover. And I'm so glad we got to be able to do it. And like I said, I did not plan for us to record on, the day SpaceX launched, but it just felt right. I'm so glad we did it.
Great coincidence, an absolutely wonderful coincidence.
Yeah, gives me new hope for our future, as a podcast, but also as a country, the United States, with our advancements with SpaceX and just space exploration in general. Now that I think we've crossed that initial crucial hurdle of cheapening space flights, by creating reusable rockets. Because before this, every rocket was a one-off.
I love that footage of the rocket that goes up and it comes back down. That's crazy.
Right? It's so insane.
It's like out of a science fiction movie.
It feels unreal.
It does. It feels so surreal, like I'm watching a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no.
But it's no, that actually happened. There's hundreds upon hundreds of people coordinating this, from Johnson Space Center here in Houston to the people over in the Cape Canaveral out in Florida, who was helping make sure the flight was okay. You have the execs over at SpaceX working with NASA's chief technology engineer and all that. We have so many people working on this, both in the private sector and the public sector. And it's amazing to see what we've been able to accomplish. I'm glad that we're going back into space. The first time we went to space in the 60s with Kennedy, really sparked this renaissance of mathematics and scientific inquiry in our youth, and that's what led to many of the pioneering jobs that we now take for granted today. With computer engineering, software technologies, and just physical, new inventive products, such as Velcro, it was very popularized because of its use in space applications. Memory foam exists because of NASA, and so many other technologies and advancing programs that are used now in computers, in tracking data and stuff like that. It has really come from their pioneering research. But I think, as far as the public sector, that's more or less stagnated. So now we need these private companies who drive innovation because of competition. They're going to be the reason why we succeed now. I firmly believe that.
Yeah. And it's looking pretty bright for the future of just space exploration and that whole field of science. It's so exciting.
Well, the possibilities are so opened up now, aren't they?
Oh yeah.
Can I just say how monumental of a historical event the ISS was?
Yes.
Just for humanity alone. This is it's insane. I'm still my brain still boggles when I think about it. It happened such a long time ago, and I'm still we're
still using it today.
Yeah, it is so crazy. We have a whole space station floating up there in space.
Well, because now of the possibility of privatized space, space travel being a thing, and then there's always Musk's plan for what was it, a global internet connection or something like that would require space hubs similar to the ISS. So in the future, in theory, we're going to have more than just the ISS space. We're going to have more space stations up there.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
it's such a cool idea as well to imagine that we could potentially become a bit more of a spacefaring species in the future.
Yes, and this is the stuff that brings out that 8-year-old in me again, that thinks about space, that thinks about the moon, that thinks about Mars, and what will it take to get there? What will we have to do to get there? And being, 24, about to be 25, and having a more mature look at these things, I now ask myself the questions of what does this mean for us as a people? What does this mean for us, as a country? What does this mean for, privatized business and stuff like that? Because, I have my fears and my concerns about, modern capitalism and stuff like that. I'm not against capitalism, but I think it needs some heavy, remodeling to be functional. Because when the coronavirus hit, and we really saw how fragile our economy was. There's a reason why America got hit so hard. We didn't have the infrastructure in place to take care of problems.
Yeah.
And the conversation for another time.
Absolutely.
It makes me ask these questions, and it makes me feel hopeful about the possibilities. So
yeah. It's pretty bright. It's looking good. It's looking bright out there in space.
The future may pick up for us after all, minus the whole coronavirus issue.
But yeah, I think that wraps up today's topic, which is a very fun one. I can't wait for the next couple of weeks, as there are possible collaborations that I'm going to do. We may have 1 or 2 guests come on in the next following episodes. But until those are finalized, I don't want to say when or who just yet, but there's definitely more people that we have been talking to in the works, so be ready for that. And we have more plans about expanding our stuff. I know this summer we have a lot of things that we want to get done, so we are working on setting up a Facebook page and even a Discord for everyone the community to join and interact with each other and stuff like that, because like I said, as much as I wanted this just to be a podcast, that I can talk about the stuff I was interested in, I did want this to drive genuine discussion. So we need to have places for people to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And with stuff like us, trying to figure out how we want to launch YouTube, which is where a lot of people have asked me, about that, because I also talk to a lot of people who have been interested in the podcast, but they live in a country where, they don't have Spotify, or they can't download Google Podcasts for some reason, or this, that, and the other, and they can't get a VPN for one reason or another. So they always ask me, is it on YouTube? I personally have decided that we shouldn't put it on YouTube up until this point, because YouTube and podcasting don't necessarily mix. It's two different fields. But with everyone asking, we have considered that we're going to, start putting episodes on there. But there's also talks about other things that we can do there too. Because if we're going to use the service, we might as well take advantage of it.
Yeah.
So, like I said,
Obscura will come in handy potentially.
Yeah, it really will. And with other projects and stuff, we have our hands full. But I know we are trying to shoot for my personal goal that I think by the end of summer, we should try to have at least 100 active followers, which means every week we have 100 people ready to listen to the next episode that comes out. I think that's going to be our major goal, and something I'm going to personally try to push for.
I definitely want to help. I want to see this explode, even if I'm not going to be the biggest part of it, like obviously you and Vlad will be. I want to be somewhere that helping in some way or form.
Yeah. Well, with what we call, the core team, everyone's also doing other things to help us. Just because you don't necessarily record an episode every week with us, I don't think that should undervalue the work that you guys are planning to, to put forward. Like with Nathan and his music, this is an outlet for him to be able to, produce more experimental stuff that he enjoys, and that would fit more with our podcast. I know we were talking about, possible art and animation, which is something I really want you to be able to express and take advantage of, which is something we're discussing on YouTube. But again, I'm biting my tongue. I don't want to make a promise to anything just yet. But there are other ways that we can expand, and bring out everyone's, I guess what's the word I'm looking for? Collective interest or whatever.
Passions, maybe.
Passions.
There we go. That's good.
And so it's just trying to figure out how to best use everyone is the biggest issue, because I've kind of been more or less the team coordinator with everyone, and I understand everyone's got their personal lives and things happen, and it makes it difficult. I got my own stuff going on, there's so much that I'm stressing out about. So to have you all help me has been a tremendous help. So I don't ever want it to, at the end of the day, be like, you're just helping me. This is as much your project as it is mine at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel it should be represented as so. So like I said, there's a lot of stuff in the future. We have a lot of smaller podcasts who have taken some interest in collaborating with us, and likewise with me collaborating with them. So there's other things that we're looking into, but we're also trying to get more advertisers, and we are looking into distributing the podcast more so we can have more of an audience. And if you're curious to be able to find, any of our social media or anything, we are on Twitter and Instagram currently. So we like to post, once a week to let you know when we are uploading and give you guys any more information. That's also the best way to be able to contact, someone on the team to be able to answer any questions, or, to receive any updates about anything going on. Those will always be the best places to find us, at Files Obscura, both on Instagram and Twitter. Or you could also email us at filesobscura@gmail.com. One of us will always be available to answer any questions or inquiries. So we are still in what I like to call the humble stage, but I think we're getting our humble beginnings. But I think we're getting to that point now where we're able to take this more seriously. I know my biggest reasonings for not doing more was because I wanted to have content first before we do anything else. And I think we can say we have enough episodes to justify moving on to, more things like advertising, marketing, partnerships, merchandise, stuff like that. At least start to take a look into these things. So a lot of speculation about our future, but I have a good feeling nonetheless. With the people that we have.
I'm hyped for it too. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing where we get to and how we develop. I'm personally going to be there as much as I can be.
Absolutely. And like I said, the work is always appreciated. Because at the end of the day, I do eventually want this to be, you know, in some sense, a media company where we produce more content. I want to be able to pay you guys for how much you've helped so far. I know this was just kind of a dream project for me. I never imagined I'd get the help I have right now. I never imagined I'd even get past, you know, episode 4, because last time I tried to make a podcast, I didn't get past episode 4. I gave myself every reason not to do it.
Yeah.
And you guys have severely, you know, encouraged me in the right direction with this, and I can't thank you guys enough for that. And I really want to see where we go, and I really want to see where we're going to be this time next year. You know, I want, you know, to build a future with this. I would love to build a future with you guys. I love working with you all, and, you know, we can only do, you know, we can do as much as we can.
Yeah.
You know, and audience, you know, this also, you know, goes to you. If you really love the show, please spread the news. Tell us what you would like to respond to us, you know, because we only want to make content that you guys want to listen to. We only want to make things that you guys are going to stick around for, you know, but we can only determine that if you guys talk to us. So spread the news, you know, message us anytime you can. If you have any questions or suggestions about topics in the future, please, by all means, one of us will be able to answer. One of us will be able to help you. You know, that's pretty much all I got to say right now.
Yeah,
Vlad, anything?
And no, I think you said everything. It's been a pretty good episode, actually. I really enjoyed it. It's a really interesting topic, and I'm hoping we have more fascinating topics to come.
Yeah, absolutely. I know it's kind of on the ball and we haven't talked about it yet, but by the time this episode comes out, I want us to have the Facebook page up and everything, which we will all be, you know, admins, moderators on. But that would be probably the next best way to get any information about upcoming episodes or projects and any possible giveaways or anything that we may be doing. So definitely check that out. It's Files Obscura. That's all it is. So short and simple. CC, any closing remarks you want to make?
No, I think I said what I'd like to say. I'm happy with what you said, and I'm just looking forward to the future now, basically. I'm on the edge of my seat for however we're going to go.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. So with nothing else to say, we love you all. We all hope you have a great time, and we can't wait to see you next week. You all have a wonderful day.